Hi, Francis. So, is this just a recognition that once you recognize, it just stops there, or it's just an unlimited recognition that can go as deep as you can imagine?
Say that again.
This recognition of consciousness, the unlimited consciousness, once you recognize it, and you know, when you recognize it, you know you do. But then the question is, how deep can it go? And is it that once you recognize, it just ends there, or it's an unlimited, like it can go as deep as you can imagine and it will never end?
When you recognize it, you may or may not act in accordance with your recognition. You may or may not feel and perceive the world in accordance with your recognition. You may or may not act in the world in accordance with it. You may or may not interact with people and animals in accordance with your recognition. So it takes time to implement, if you will, in all those realms, this recognition. Ultimately, it implements itself. We can, however, cooperate with this implementation. In that sense that the body and the mind can be trained, we know that. In ignorance, they have taken bad habits. They can be retrained. These old habits can be erased through the application of proper means, which accelerates, if you will, the process of implementation. As long as there are these old habits, as long as they are active, the fruit of the recognition cannot be enjoyed, which is peace and happiness.
There is no end to that peace and happiness. And there is just like, I'm curious about the nature of this.
That peace and happiness is in fact our true nature. Our true nature is love, which is peace and happiness. The only burden was to believe to be a separate consciousness. That's the only burden.
And so another question I have, for someone who has recognized it, and if something in life happens, like loss of a loved one, like your child dies, how does a recognized person react? Will there be, I'm sure there will still be grief, but what's the nature of that grief? How is it different from...
There is no personal grief. Personal grief is about me, not about the loved one you have lost. Personal grief is about me because it's like I've lost some money in my bank account, or somebody has stolen my car, or somebody has destroyed my house, and then I'm lost. So that's I mean, there might be situations in which the loss of a loved one has also important material implication. If you are a young child and both of your parents die in an accident, it changes your life. So then you are... But often what you miss is something else. It doesn't have real practical consequences in your life. The consequences are psychological, the attachment you have with a body-mind, or to a body-mind. Now, there is another form of grief which is impersonal, but which is different, which is what I call a sweet sadness. It's a love you shared with this person, that when you think about this person, or you see an object, or you see something, it reminds you of the innocence of this person. It reminds you of the qualities, you see, of often the childlikeness of this person. And I've lost my mother. She was very old. In my life, it has no practical consequences. You see, I'm not depending upon her. I'm not dependent. But sometimes when I remember her, you know, her innocence, I see a little girl, you know, and it's sweet, it's touching. So that's a sweet sadness. But I'm not desperate because I've lost my mom. You see, it's very different. Remember when I was a young child, I was afraid that my parents would die. I don't know whether you have had this experience. I was afraid. Children have that, you know, they don't want their parents to die. And that's because they feel that they are necessary for their survival.
That sweet sadness is not something you want to escape from. It's just
no, but it happens, but it doesn't make you miserable. It reminds us of what we have really in common with the people, the people we loved and who have departed. It is this childlikeness, this innocence, this love, these moments we have shared, or just what they were, you know, what they truly were. Fundamentally, we all are this innocence. You know, that's the depth, the deep meaning of Jesus on the cross saying, "Forgive them, for they don't know what they do." You see, it's a recognition of the deep innocence of all beings.
Thank you.
Francis, I heard a tape of yours in which you said that it's the mind-body that gets liberated. Consciousness is free. It's the mind-body that gets liberated. And I'm wondering if you can, I wonder if I understand it correctly, because it seems like it's consciousness which is identified with the mind-body. Is it sort of just shorthand for saying, in this particular expression of consciousness, it was identified and now this expression is free? Is that what is meant by that?
Even when consciousness was apparently in the jail cell of the body-mind, the door of the cell was open. It just had convinced itself that the door was closed. Enlightenment is the recognition that the door is open.
So, and the reason why there can be so many apparent enlightenments is because the enlightenment is with reference to a particular expression of consciousness.
There are not different enlightenments. There is only one enlightenment.
Well,
Because
then,
there is only one reality. There are different paths that lead to it. And then, most importantly, there are different expressions of it. So different body minds, different cultures, different etc. But the experience itself, our true nature, is the same in all of us.
but I guess what I'm trying to explore is that in a particular mind body, or the experience of a particular mind body, there can be identification or ignorance. And in another expression, mind-body expression, there isn't.
Yeah, consciousness may choose to identify with this body-mind, in this body-mind, but not.
So the enlightenment or occur is this is the wrong word, but it's a local phenomenon. It has to do with one particular expression, because consciousness manifests itself in so many ways as plants, rocks, animals, humans.
Well, yes, ignorance is a local phenomenon.
So the disappearance of ignorance must be local as well. No?
No. No. Because ultimately, even locality is an illusion.
Okay, can you help me understand how, I don't want to say that a person gets enlightened, but how would you express it that there is ignorance in various mind-body organisms, and in some it disappears, in others it doesn't? Because if it's just simply consciousness identified, as soon as it becomes disidentified, then all the mind bodies should be awakened, enlightened. So am I trying to understand how we get to that?
Yeah, but
How would you express that?
enlightenment is the experience of consciousness stopping ignorance. That's the ending of ignorance.
Everywhere?
No, stopping a specific attachment with a specific object. You know, it's we are trying to have a picture with the mind of something which is beyond the mind, and that's very difficult. You are following me? What is important is to be practical. In that sense, the problem is not What is ignorance? Is it local? Is it non-local? Is it... These are false questions. These are intellectual questions. The only problem is, how do I get rid of it? You see, that's the only... because the only real problem is, how can I be happy? That's... We ask this question, for instance, how did ignorance begin? What is the cause for it? Why do we ask this question? Because we believe that if we know the etiology of it, how it began, then we may find some cure for it. You know, that's a very scientific method, you see. We try to find the root cause of it, and then we will eventually come up with a cure. But it is only a postponement by the mind of the moment of recognition, because the mind cannot find the cure. The cure for ignorance cannot be contained within the mind. The cure for ignorance is contained in consciousness itself, not in the mind. Consciousness itself is the cure for ignorance, or of ignorance, not the mind. When we say, for instance, ignorance began because of the way our parents were addressing us, you know, as a body instead of as consciousness. Well, perhaps yes, perhaps no. You see what I mean? Perhaps there are other ways we got infected. Perhaps it traces back to Adam and Eve, yeah. Who knows? But who cares at the end of the day? You see? Whether it's our parents or whether it's Adam and Eve or whatever other reason, the only thing that matters is, how do I get rid of that? If you will, the idea is, I believe in Santa Claus. How do I get rid of the belief? By investigating how I came to it that I believe in Santa Claus, because my mom told me, because my dad told me, because grandpa told me, grandma told me, or this aunt told me. Who cares? You see, the result that matters is it true that there is such a thing as Santa Claus? And then I can really investigate Santa Claus. So in our case, is it true that there is a limited and personal consciousness? How can I investigate that? Well, consciousness is my experience. I can ask questions from consciousness and see what consciousness has to offer. Are you limited? How do I know? Were you born? Did you begin? Will you end? Where do you come from? We could ask all these questions from consciousness, and what we get is a deafening silence. which means that when we believe that it was born, when we believe that it is limited, when we believe all these things, we have no experiential basis to believe that way. And then we can give the alternate possibility a chance. And that's also an experimental approach. By giving the alternate possibility a chance, there will be a response from the universe, which is what an experiment is. You ask a question from nature, the outcome of the experiment is nature's response to the question. It's the same here. By changing the way we feel, we think, we act, we react, we perceive, we will ask a question from consciousness: are you limited or not? And we get an answer.
On the point of experimenting, it isn't so much that you, that you pretend that consciousness is universal, but when you find that your thoughts, feelings, or actions are personal, you question it and see if it's true. It isn't so much that you are adopting, or I'm asking a question, is it so much that you are adopting an attitude of universality? I can't imagine how that can actually be done, but instead, it's just that I'm assuming that you just noticed when your thoughts, actions, and feelings are not in accordance with an insight that you
you can have an attitude of universality. Let's take an example. Let's say you have you have closed a deal with people, at least verbally. You shook hands, right? And you are in agreement. And they have their lawyers drafting, the contract to be signed, but you have agreed. Then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get a new offer, more interesting. What do you do? If you act from personal consciousness, you say, well, contract is not signed, I got the best offer, too bad for them. But if you act from universal consciousness, you say, well, they were in good faith. They went through all the steps. They spend money with the lawyers and all of that, doing the things. They spend their time, and I gave my word. So, from the vantage point of view, I am the same consciousness there as here. So what is fair is that I stick to my word. Right?
Well, that could be one possibility, right? I mean, you could also go back and
well, you can say up yours, yes, and I take the new offer.
You might pay off the initial person that made the agreement with. There's many ways, right?
No. No.
Why
No.
not? How do we know what the right way is? Every situation is different.
You put yourself in the shoes of other people who have been honest, they have been straightforward, and they trust you as consciousness as you have to trust them as consciousness. You cannot, there is such a thing as, just as for beauty, people say, okay, beauty is that's in the eyes of the beholder, right? There is no universal beauty, and Jackson Pollock is as good as Vermeer. Or heavy metal is as good as Bach.
Can we get that in writing?
What?
Can we get that in writing? Can we quote you on that? Yeah.
Yeah, there are people who say that. That's relativism, right? And so there are no what Plato calls the universals, right? Universal. Well, there is. There is about beauty, and there is also about ethics. Of course, we cannot, I understand, if what you mean is we cannot put that in a book of recipes, right? That's a different story. It's not because I have a contract with Hitler when I didn't know Hitler was a bad guy, that now that Hitler is killing people by the zillions, that I still have to deliver weapons to him because I had a contract with him. That's a different story. But something has changed, you see, in the situation. But the one I presented, everybody was in good faith. You see what I mean? So assuming that everybody was in good faith, I don't see that you can back out of the deal if you are in good faith.
So is that more, that sounds more Kantian, where...
More what?
Kantian? The philosopher Kant.
Kantian? Whatever you call it.
I don't know how you pronounce it.
I don't think we need to refer to Kant to explain this very straightforward thing that I've just explained, that you stick to your word, and that if people have trust you, you reciprocate in trust. And that if you have agreed and shaken hands, if they have acted on it and, spend their good money on that and their labor, because they trusted you, that all of a sudden you say, too bad.
So then the point I made earlier about seeing your thoughts, feelings, your actions as coming from a personal vantage point, and then reflecting on it and correcting that, would that be, again, acting in according to universal, that consciousness is universal?
Yes, the moment you do your best, in all sincerity, in all honesty, to act impersonally, you are acting impersonally, you see? You don't need to be perfect. If you do your best.
So just the intention, the desire to
do your best. And then you may perhaps not do the right thing in this case, but if your intention came from that place, your action will be. We have the signature, the seal of honesty and love, and then the universe will. That's the beauty, that the universe, and apparently you lost on this deal, but then you'll see that down the road the universe will fix the problem.
So you in this way, I can see that the separate feeling that humans have of that you know, it's man against nature or man against the world, that you know you're always in conflict. That kind of thing begins to dissolve.
Because you are the world and the world is you. It is the sense of separation that dissolves. And so that you feel really that you feel the world is your home in that sense. You see, there is this saying, I don't know in English, but peace on earth
Goodwill.
to those of goodwill, right? Is that it? Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Well, in French we say it a little different. We say peace on earth to those, for those of goodwill. Peace on earth for those of goodwill. And that's exactly what it means. If you're of goodwill, to be of goodwill, my definition is one who tries to be impersonal in his actions and decisions. And then the reward is peace on earth. It doesn't say peace, by the way, after you die. Peace in heaven. It says peace on earth, already here. You see, that's...
Thank you, Francis.
Hello, Francis. So I want to talk about soul. And I suppose I can ask a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to limit it. You know, there was a time, I think, where I felt like, well, we all have an individual soul. Now it seems more like we don't have a soul, we are soul. And then it also begs the question, well, do I really need to consider or even have any thoughts about this soul? So I have this metaphor in my that I want to share with you and just kind of get your response to it. So I have this idea that consciousness is a very large diamond, and this diamond has an infinite number of facets. And each one of the facets is what we would refer to as soul. Because even though we are all consciousness has expressed your body-mind uniquely, and it's expressed John's body-mind uniquely, and Joyce's uniquely, etc. So, to me, that metaphor seems appropriate in that everybody is consciousness, everybody is soul in the large sense, and there's something unique that's expressed in the body-mind. And to me, that uniqueness, that's the facet, the unique facet on the diamond. So that's what I have as a metaphor.
So this uniqueness is what I called ego, in fact, right? In my definition, because ego was different from ignorance, right? Yes. If I could play a little further with your metaphor.
Please.
Each facet, let's say, has its own color and its own direction to which it refracts or reflects the light. And the reflection of the light through this interface. The reflected light would be, or refracted and reflect, would be the personality, including the body. That seems to be so real. But in this metaphor, it is immaterial like the light. And the reality of it is the diamond, the unique soul. You see, that's what the diamond is made of matter, so it's real in that sense. The light is less real. We usually believe that it is the other way around, that the body is real and that the consciousness, the soul, is less real than the body. At some point we have to stop speaking about it, you see, and go to just to the peace and the experience of it.